All right. Demi.
Yes.
We're going to start in Charlotte. This is something that... So you had a piece at the Daily Caller this week.
I did.
About this issue in Charlotte, right?
I did.
And if... I'm going to briefly recite the facts for anyone who doesn't know what's going on,
Give
right?
a summary for us.
So what's going on in Charlotte is the city proposed an ordinance providing special protections for LGBT and transgender people in places of public accommodation. Places of public accommodation is a very broad term. And this debate is not just about special protections for LGBT people and businesses, because special protections for them means less rights for business owners. There's really no way around that. It's one or the other. So on one side of this debate are people saying that private business owners should be made to accommodate lifestyle choices that they disagree with. On the other side of the debate are people saying I should be able to go into places of public accommodation and do whatever I want. Inherent in that, you'll notice that the more places become public accommodations, the less they become private property. That's just an underlying tone here. So one part of this law is that in a place of, quote, public accommodation, so restaurant, church, Walmart, Target, anywhere, you get to use whatever bathroom you identify with based on your self-identified gender.
Right.
So if I were to go into Barnes & Noble and say, I identify as a woman, I could go in the woman's restroom to use it. No one could stop me. So there's an issue here, several issues. One is just the common sense issue of, do you want men in women's bathrooms? No. Another is a public safety issue. If you see a man walk into a women's restroom, you no longer have the ability to easily ask, something's up, we should stop this.
Right.
All kinds of issues. And so that's basically what's going on. Demi, you wrote a piece this week because sort of some new news came out about this. And could you tell us what that news was and what you thought about it?
Well, first of all, the funny thing is it wasn't new news exactly, because the North Carolina Values Coalition has been talking for weeks now about how the guy who was leading the charge for this ordinance to be passed, his name is Chad Severance. He's actually a registered sex offender. So he was already convicted. He's currently on the sex offender registry for luring young boys into his apartment and touching them and trying to have sex with them. This guy is the guy leading the charge on opening up our bathrooms so that women and children do not any longer feel comfortable or that their privacy is honored when a guy can just waltz in and possibly violate them.
Yeah. And one of the biggest aspect of this story for me was that the newspapers covering this knew it and covered it up.
Yep.
Because if this had been part of the public debate ahead of the city council's ruling, I really wouldn't have had as much of a problem with it. Obviously, this guy made some poor decisions in life. He did some things he shouldn't have done. But if that had been part of the debate and we had debated the relevance of that to this and how that matters ahead of time, and then the city council voted, it wouldn't be quite as big of a deal for me. Yeah,
exactly. So the issue at hand is not just that this guy seemed to have a vested interest in something like this getting passed, but that since February 8th, when a press conference was held revealing this information, the Charlotte Observer has used him as a source and an advocate for this ordinance to be passed over and over and over again. And not once did they even acknowledge his sex offender status. So you think for a reporter that would be just a fact-finding thing, something to reveal. But no, I mean, it was never mentioned. Not only was it never mentioned, but North Carolina Values Coalition has proof that they contacted the Charlotte Observer repeatedly to report on this. And they never did. Not only did they ignore it, they knew about it, and they covered it up. And they used this guy as their primary source to be an advocate for this ordinance.
It's horrendous. It's
the
ridiculous.
Public deserves to know those kinds of things when a decision like that is so weighty for the community.
And one thing I want to make clear in this, and I think I'm repeating myself now, but I just want to make this clear. People do bad things, and people make mistakes, and they can come back from that. That doesn't mean you're done, that you're marginalized in there's that we don't want you to be around. But when it's an ordinance that has to do with children being safe, and there's suspicion that maybe this guy has been around children and they haven't been safe, I think that should be part of the debate.
Yeah, I think the primary reason that the majority of the public do object to this ordinance The primary reason they object to it is due to the safety of women and children. Children should not be made to feel uncomfortable, nor should women. We are the most vulnerable. And then the bathroom is where we feel very vulnerable. That's where a lot of sexual assault happens. So to have this guy leading the charge on this, and he has himself preyed on young boys, it is alarming. And it's something that could have been part of the public discourse. And maybe it should have been revealed a very long time ago. And maybe he should have stepped down and had somebody else be at the forefront of this issue for them. It would have been much more compelling.
Well, and key to this, why didn't he just reveal it?
That would have been the smartest move.
Right.
To just say...
just come out and publicly declare up front, hey, I had an issue with this. I've been convicted of it.
Their
but
groups
let's
have
move
been
forward.
pretty open about his past. So they had revealed it in the past. So to your point, yes, they did reveal that. The strange thing is that the Charlotte Observer never mentioned
not
it.
Yeah.
Because that is another example of it not being a secret. Not only were conservative groups revealing this information, sharing this information, but even his own group mentioned it and revealed it in a press release. So there's absolutely no reason why the Charlotte Observer should not share that for the public.
And
interesting.
There's so many things going on here. I mean, I'm from Charlotte. That's where I grew up. That's where I go back a lot. I have female relatives that live in Charlotte, and I worry about this.
Yeah.
So we'll see where this goes. I only say this because it was reported. And I don't know anything else about this, but I know it was reported in a LGBT publication that this guy is now plotting a lawsuit based on this against some people at NC Values, which is just ridiculous.
That's fine. He can threaten.
And I won't comment on that anymore because but whatever.
Well, I don't think he's even filed. He can say that if he likes, but he has no case, and he can just...
I was just thinking I was doing a thought experiment the other day, and I was thinking, if somebody at NC Values... who, NC Values has really been leading the charge on this thing, right, in Charlotte. We've been involved to some extent, but they've really been leading the charge. If the director of NC Values, and this is not true, this is a hypothetical. If the director of NC Values had been convicted of a sex offense, I'm pretty sure that would have been plastered on the front of the Observer.
Are you
stat.
kidding? Yes.
It would have been all over the place.
Absolutely.
And it just... It's unfortunate that that's where we're at, but that's where we're at. And
that's true.
And I heard Keith Larson, talk show host in Charlotte, was just livid over this. It was just absolutely
Everyone
livid.
should be, and everyone is, who sees the proof and the connection that Charlotte Observer knew about this, and they refuse to report about it. There's absolutely no reason. There's no reason. Unless they had an agenda.
And by the way, the lawyer in me has to tell you that the city's ordinance is completely invalid. In terms of they don't have the power to do this anyways.
Right.
We live in what's called a Dillon's rule state, which means that the power emanates from the legislature.
Right.
If this were a home rule state, then they'd probably have a better case. But we're not in a home rule state. We're in a Dillon's rule state. So the legislature has considered a special session to deal with this. It's going to go down one of two ways. Either the legislature is going to deal with it, or it's going to get challenged in court and the statute's going to get struck down. The legislature is not calling for a special session because they're worried the law might be upheld. They're calling for a special session because it takes a year to get through a lawsuit to strike down a law. They just want to go ahead and get rid of this thing now. So,
well, and to keep it from going into effect for 2 weeks.
And the legislature would be wise when they pass a law getting rid of the Charlotte Ordinance to say in that law, we are not passing this as a commentary on whether the Charlotte Ordinance is valid or not. We think it's invalid, but we're also passing this law to just get rid of it now.
Right.
So
it looks like that might happen. So props to Senator Berger and everybody for pushing for that.